What's the most cruel thing a step-parent ever said to you? I grew up with just my dad. My mom passed away when I was 7 after a sudden illness, and for years it was just me and him. He wasn't perfect, but he tried hard, packing my lunches, braiding my hair, badly, but with effort, sitting through every school play, every recital. For a long time, it felt like us against the world. When I was 11, Dad met her. Her name was Diane. She was beautiful, polished, the type of woman who never had a hair out of place and always smelled like expensive perfume. At first, I thought she was amazing. She took me shopping, painted my nails, even helped me pick out my middle school dance dress. I liked her. I really did. But slowly, things changed. She moved in when I was 12, and suddenly it was like my dad's attention was redirected. He wasn't ignoring me, but his free time was suddenly filled with coupley things with Diane. Dinners out, weekends away. I told myself it was fine. He deserved happiness too. But Diane had a sharp edge. Little comments here and there. Do you really need a second helping? When I went for more pasta. Your hair would look so much nicer if you lost a little weight. You're lucky your dad is so forgiving. Teenagers can be so ungrateful. They were small, cutting remarks I brushed off because, well, she was new, and maybe she just didn't know how to talk to me yet. By the time I turned 14, things escalated. Dad and Diane got married, and I felt like a guest in my own home. She redecorated everything, boxed up my mom's old photos to keep them safe, and moved me into the smaller bedroom so her visiting nieces would have space. Still, I kept my head down. I didn't want to cause drama. Dad seemed happy, and that mattered to me. But then came the moment. The cruelest thing she ever said to me. It was my 15th birthday. Dad had promised he'd be home early to celebrate, but work ran late. So it was just me and Diane. She had made this fancy dinner, steak, potatoes, asparagus. I remember being excited because she usually didn't cook. When we sat down, she poured herself a big glass of wine, looked at me, and said casually, "You know, your dad wouldn't even be with me if your mom were still alive." I froze. I didn't even know what to say. I just stared at her while she took another sip like she'd just commented on the weather. She didn't stop. She was the love of his life. Everyone knows it. I'm just the replacement. And honestly, sometimes I think he only keeps me around because he feels bad for being alone with you. Raising you by himself was hard on him. You're a lot. Then she leaned across the table, lowered her voice, and said, "If it weren't for you, he probably would have found someone better. But no man wants to take on a broken kid, so here we are." That was the exact moment my heart cracked in a way I can't fully describe. I excused myself, went to my room, and sobbed into my pillow until I couldn't breathe. Dad eventually came home with a cake and balloons, but I couldn't even look at him. I felt like if I told him, he wouldn't believe me. Or worse, he'd agree with her. For months after, I carried that poison around. Every time Dad looked tired, every time he seemed distracted, every time he laughed a little too hard at something Diane said, I heard her words echoing, "You're a lot. No man wants a broken kid." It messed me up. I stopped eating as much, convinced myself I was a burden, pulled away from my friends. My grades slipped. Dad noticed, of course, but every time he asked, I just shrugged it off. One night when I overheard Diane on the phone with her sister, she was in the kitchen and I was in the hallway. She laughed and said, "I swear, if that girl wasn't around, life would be perfect. Sometimes I wish she'd just go live with her grandparents or something." She's holding everything back. I don't think I've ever hated anyone more in that moment. The next day at school, my English teacher handed back an essay I wrote. The topic was, "Who inspires you the most?" And I had written about my mom. I guess the way I wrote it was raw, emotional, because my teacher asked if I was okay. For the first time, I cracked. I told her everything. About Diane, about the birthday, about the phone call. She made me promise to talk to my dad. That night, I did. I expected him to be mad. I expected him to defend her. But when I told him word for word what Diane had said to me, I watched his face crumble. He went completely still, then just whispered, "She said that to you?" I nodded, sobbing. He hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You are not a burden. You're my daughter. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Don't you ever believe otherwise." He didn't even wait for Diane to come home. He packed a bag for me, and we left to stay at a hotel. I found out later that it wasn't just me. She had been quietly draining his bank account, manipulating him, and bad-mouthing me to his friends. A week later, he filed for divorce.